On the day the underworld boss was captured, he asked me if I loved him. I thought for a moment, yes. Let's reluctantly act it out. After all, there are so many chances for rebirth these days. Who would have thought that when I opened my eyes again, the underworld boss was holding me in bed, asking while making love, "Baby, do you love me?" Damn it. Sure enough, I was reborn. Baby, have you ever loved me? Jason was held down by the police but still stubbornly looked up at me, his eyes bloodshot. I suppressed the pleasure in my heart, forced out a tear, hesitated to speak, and then stopped and wanted to speak again. Finally, with tears in my eyes, I uttered one word. Yes. Sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know it would turn out like this. Then, as if overwhelmed, I turned around and fled in a panic. When I fled to a place where no one was around, I calmly wiped away my tears, replied my lipstick, and prepared to watch the interrogation later. A young police officer who chased after me looked at me with resentment. For this kind of scum. You really are so stupid. I patted him on the shoulder and said earnestly, "You don't understand. There are so many chances for rebirth these days. If I don't act it out, what if he is reborn and takes revenge on me? After all, I have been reborn 3 times. The young police officer snorted. There are so many chances for rebirth. Why haven't they been given to heroes? They are only given to this kind of scum. I opened my mouth but finally said nothing. What could I say? I went to watch the interrogation. Jason confessed to his crimes. Suddenly, he turned his head and looked over. Even though I knew he couldn't see me through the glass, my hands still couldn't help but clench. For 6 years. I have been by Jason's side for 6 years. His eyes are too familiar to me. He is unwilling. I really want to rush in and slap him twice. Unwilling. Your grandpa. After coming out of the interrogation room, Police Officer Zhang found me, looking relieved. With Jason arrested, you are free. I suddenly felt a little lost. After being lost, there was surprise. Police Officer Zhang patted me on the shoulder. Think about what you want to do and where you want to go in the future. Good days are waiting for you. I've already thought about it. I will go to the north and raise another dog. There is the strongest wind and wine there. There are the glaciers and snowfields that my parents yearned for the most. When leaving the police station, he waved at me. Snow. Live a good life. Goodbye. I froze. After being an undercover agent for many years, I almost forgot my real name. Goodbye. Police Officer Zhang. Be safe. Soon. Jason was sentenced to death for multiple crimes. On the night he died, I opened a bottle of champagne to celebrate. For the first time, I indulged myself and got drunk. Perhaps because I had drunk too much. I felt extremely hot in the middle of the night and had a spring dream. It was both real and delusory. At the peak, a voice suddenly asked me, "Baby, do you love me?" I will never forget this voice in my life. Most of the drunkenness instantly sobered up. I barely opened my eyes and saw Jason's evil and charming eyebrows and eyes. I froze. But soon, Jason's movements made me soften again. He kissed my ear. His hand gently rubbed and comforted the back of my neck. I softened my voice. Don't dawdle. Hurry up. Jason chuckled lowly, with a hint of pleasure, and released the hand on the back of my neck. I only felt my scalp go numb. Damn it. He was really reborn. And he is testing if I am reborn. If my answer is the same as before his death, he will not hesitate to break my neck. At this time in my previous life, I was drugged by design before having a relationship with Jason. This was a crucial step in the qualitative leap of our relationship. But it hadn't reached the point of loving or not. Until I finally passed out in a daze. I was still gnashing my teeth in hatred. When I woke up the next day, there was no sign of Jason beside me. I opened my eyes. Then closed them. Opened them again and closed them again. Finally. I was so annoyed that I pounded the bed. With Jason's rebirth, all the efforts of my previous life were in vain, and countless undercover comrades will be sacrificed. At this time in my previous life, Jason should have been waiting for me to wake up and tease me, not leave early. I took a deep breath. After getting dressed, I inquired about Jason's whereabouts. The identity forged by the police for me is Snow, the only daughter of a wealthy man. She is arrogant and domineering. The wealthy father intends to cooperate with Jason. So I followed here. I am fake. But the wealthy man is real. After several inquiries, I stopped Jason before he went to the factory. There is an undercover comrade in the factory who holds most of Jason's criminal clues. In the previous life, these clues were sent out. But he was not so lucky. Later, these clues helped the police solve countless major cases and arrest many criminals. This was also the first step in Jason's capture. And now, I can only do my best. I stepped on high heels and pulled open Jason's car door forcefully. With wide eyes, I said angrily, "Jason, what do you mean? Do you want to sleep with me and not take responsibility?" Jason in the car gracefully adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses. His tone was resolute. "I will marry you." I was stunned. Then my face flushed to the roots of my ears. And I was suddenly at a loss. Who wants to marry you? You're not good enough." Jason's gaze fell on me faintly, and he raised an eyebrow and asked, "I'm not good enough." I snorted and turned my head aside. "I'm not satisfied. You are just not good enough." Suddenly, Jason grabbed my hand and pulled me into the car. His foot hooked the car door. The car instantly sped away. I was secretly anxious. I struggled in his arms. "What are you doing? Let me go." Jason's kisses fell overwhelmingly, blocking all my words. After a long while, he let me go. "Baby, don't be angry." Then he pecked my face again. "So beautiful." I turned my head aside, both shy and annoyed. The scenery outside the window flashed by quickly. We were getting closer and closer to the factory. Jason stopped teasing me and carefully tittied up my dress. "I still have things to do later. Ask Sue to accompany you." Sue is Jason's younger brother. He is also an undercover agent. But in my previous life, he never met Jason head-on. So I don't know if Jason knows. I coughed twice and pretended to be serious. "I am also your partner. I want to take a look too." Jason rubbed the top of my head. "It's too bloody. You won't like it." I pouted. "I am very brave." "All right then. Behind the factory is a hidden prison." Jason directly took me there. As always, it was dark, bloody, and disgusting. Stepping on the sticky ground with high heels, I felt extremely uncomfortable. "Jason, hold me," I ordered arrogantly. He helplessly laughed and picked me up. Soon we arrived in the prison. The smell of blood was even stronger. On the shelf, a person who was in a terrible state was tied up. There were many torture instruments in front of him. My eyes narrowed, perhaps sensing my body tense up. Jason asked in a low voice, "Scared?" I turned my head and pretended to be calm. "Not at all." He pecked my face. "We'll go back soon." He sat down holding me and took a tissue to carefully wipe off the bloodstains on my shoe soles. A burly man came over and spat. "Boss, this is a tough one. We haven't been able to break him in all night." My heart sank. Jason had captured this person and tortured him severely last night. Jason didn't even raise his head. "If we can't break him, then chop him up and let the dogs eat him." His tone was light and indifferent. I shook my foot. The heel of my shoe kicked Jason's hand. "What did he do?" "I remember when I came here with my dad last time. He was introduced by my dad." Jason pinched my ankle and slowly looked up. "Your dad has seen him." I was stunned. "Yes." "What's wrong?" Jason curved his lips. "Baby, you have done me a great favor." Before I could ask specifically, Jason picked me up again. "It's too bloody. Let's not look anymore. He turned and walked out. Not until we were out of the hidden pris and did he put me down. I really have something to do now. Let's you accompany you. This was the second time. If I refused again, Jason would be angry. Okay. Jason waved. The man with a scar on his face behind him came to stand behind me. Watching Jason leave, I looked back at the hidden prison. There is a group of wolves and dogs raised on the mountain. Right? Yes. My gaze fell on the lush mountain. Then just throw him on the mountain. Why bother chopping him up? That patch of dark green color was menacing. Sue's voice was deep, to prevent people from passing messages through corpses. I pressed my cuff. Inside the soft fabric lining was a piece of paper. I turned around. Take me for a stroll. Sue accompanied me to stroll around the factory. When we returned to the villa, I saw my dad being held down and kneeling in front of Jason. His back was torn and bleeding. I was shocked and ran over to push away the people holding my dad. Jason. What are you doing? Jason sat there calmly and glanced at me lightly. Baby. Don't cry. He is an undercover agent. I was shocked. I looked at my dad in disbelief. His tongue was cut off. His mouth was full of blood. He couldn't say a word. He just kept shaking his head. I firmly stood in front of my dad. My dad can't be an undercover agent. Jason. Do you have evidence? Jason stood up and slowly picked up the gun on the table and loaded it. Baby. You don't know. In our line of work, it's better to kill by mistake than let go. As he spoke, he walked towards me. It was you who reminded me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known that he had contact with that cop. I suddenly remembered what I had said just now, and staggered back to steps in disbelief. Jason. He had come in front of me. He grabbed my hand and put the pistol in my hand. Come, baby. Kill him. Otherwise, I will also suspect you. I trembled all over. No. I wanted to let go of my hand, but Jason held it tightly. My dad's body trembled violently. I forced myself to calm down. Jason. My dad is a wealthy man. He sincerely wants to cooperate with you. If you kill him. Not to mention that my clan members will not let you go. And no one will easily dare to cooperate with you in the future. He is an undercover agent. I roared. You have no evidence. Jason smiled elegantly. Sooner or later there will be. Baby. Kill him. I will help you take the position of family head. We can still cooperate as usual. Otherwise, you will die with him. I looked at Jason in horror. He slowly released my hand. My dad widened his eyes and kept kowtowing to me. I was short of breath and couldn't make a choice. Jason didn't give me a chance to think at all. 3, 2, bang. A gunshot. My dad fell in front of me with wide eyes. Blood flowed all over the place. My hand trembled. The gun fell to the ground. Before I fell due to weakness in my legs, Jason caught me and kissed my cheek. Good job. I trembled and said, Can you leave my dad's body intact? Jason smiled and shook his head. I've always been a person of principle. I closed my eyes and my breathing became heavier. Finally, I fainted in Jason's arms. After killing my dad with my own hands, I had a high fever. When I was delirious with fever, I heard Jason sighing and blaming me for being too delicate. I moved my fingers. He quickly asked, Are you awake? How are you feeling? I barely managed to say a sentence. I want to build a grave. As you wish. So, I supported my seriously ill body and built a cenotaph for my dad at the foot of the mountain. I bowed again and again. Finally, Jason couldn't bear it anymore and pulled me up and carried me back to the villa. I leaned in his arms and murmured, My dad loves me the most. He gives me everything I want. He only has me as his daughter. I grabbed Jason's clothes and showed him my most vulnerable side. He said affectionately, I will love you from now on. I closed my eyes and fell into a deep sleep. This sleep was extremely deep. When I woke up again, I felt much better. And this time Jason wasn't by my side. After inquiring, I found out that something had happened. The police suddenly found Jason's overt assets, and were very strict about it. He had to deal with it. This surprised me. After all, the message I sent out only told them that Jason knew the identities of most undercover agents, and there was no evidence that could threaten him. My dad's death was actually intentional on my part. In my previous life, Jason was extremely arrogant. After finding out the undercover agents and torturing them to death, he would throw the corpses to the police. While we were angry, we would pass messages through the corpses. But obviously, Jason knew after being reborn. So, I changed my method. I don't know if my dad was just a wealthy man or an undercover agent. But he must die and deserve to die. Only when he dies can I use the excuse of building a grave to pass on the message to tell the police about Jason's rebirth, and let them change their deployment. This matter is extremely urgent. Otherwise, there will be more sacrifices. But at the same time, the danger of my exposure will also increase. But to my surprise, the police actually caught Jason's weakness. This person is extremely cunning. In my previous life, it took me 6 years as an undercover agent to finally end his life. This time it's so fast. Could it be that someone else is reborn too? While thinking, my door was suddenly opened and a person who made me tremble all over entered. Snow, I finally found you. As soon as I heard this name, I tensed up and unconsciously reached under the pillow for the gun. This was given to me by Jason when I was unconscious. I don't know his intention, but it's not impossible to use it to kill Zay right now. Zay had already closed the door and was walking towards me, full of surprise. Only then did I notice that his left leg was a bit lame. Who are you? I sat up with support, full of vigilance. Hearing this, Zay paused. Who am I? You ask who I am. The surprise on his face visibly disappeared and became gloomy. Zay suddenly quickened his pace. In 2 or 3 steps, he came in front of me and pointed at his own face. Look at me carefully. Snow, don't you really remember me? I looked at him with a strange look. Get out. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Zay was stunned. Suddenly, he grabbed my shoulder. What did you say? His eyes bulged and he said angrily, now that you have become the daughter of a wealthy man, do you want to deny me? Snow, I don't know what method you used to make the wealthy man recognize you as his daughter. But if Jason knows that you are deceiving him, do you think he will let you go? With a click, the bullet was loaded. My gun was pointed at Zay's chest. Talk nonsense again, and I'll kill you. We looked at each other. From Zay's eyes, I saw my pale face due to illness. Suddenly, Zay curved his eyes and laughed meaningfully. He released me and straightened up. There was no anger on his face just now. Instead, there was a sense of leisure. Zay said slowly, sure enough. A few days ago, I saw you get into Jason's car. Although it was only a distant glance, I deeply remember your appearance and body. As he spoke, his eyes looked me up and down. It was extremely disgusting. Before I came, I wasn't sure if you were Snow. But now, he looked at the gun in my hand, so eager to kill me. Are you guilty? My heart sank suddenly and the hand holding the gun trembled a little. Zay sat down leisurely and looked at me. After a long time, I said, what do you want? I put away the gun. There is no such person as Zay under Jason. Judging from his clothes, he doesn't seem to be new. During this time, Jason is negotiating with those people in the Huaxia district. There are frequent interactions. Presumably Zay is from there. Zay cast too deep a shadow on me. So much so that I didn't calm down immediately, and was tricked by him. I secretly resented. Since he has come, there must be a follow-up move. Maybe if I kill him now, Jason will know my identity in the next second. Zay curved his lips and his tone was affectionate. Xiaozu is as smart as always. Hearing the word, Xiaozu, my eyes turned cold. Don't beat around the bush. I don't have that much patience. Sa clicked his tongue. Okay. I can also ignore your matter. But you have to find a way to make Jason give us 30%. Otherwise. 30%? Are you crazy or are you mentally disabled? Do you think I have this ability? Say's tone was resolute. You do. After saying that, he stood up. I'll give you 3 days. Otherwise, I'll go to Jason. With the bang, Sa closed the door heavily. I stared at the door in a daze. I can't do this matter. As long as I mention it, Jason will definitely suspect. Then there is only one way. I quietly escaped. I escaped towards the forest behind the hidden prison. Other places are guarded by Jason's people. Without his order, I can't get out. My body hasn't fully recovered yet. After running for a while, I got tired and was panting. Soon, night fell. I stepped in the forest. One deep and one shallow. I was extremely cold. A howl sounded in front of me. I tried hard to identify it, but only saw a pair of green eyes. I suddenly remembered that there was a group of wolves and dogs raised here. Instantly, my heart was in my throat. I tensed my back and carefully backed away. In my hand was Jason's pistol. At that moment of backing away, rustling sounds arose around me. They became louder and louder until they surrounded me. Low growls came from the throats of the wolves and dogs. I gripped the gun and loaded it. Sticky saliva overflowed from the mouths of the wolves and dogs. They licked their mouths and approached and closed in on me. I aimed my gun at the wolf dog in front. Suddenly, I pulled the trigger. With a gunshot, the birds in the forest were startled and flew away. That wolf dog was also killed. The other wolf dogs stopped. The growls became even louder. They seemed angry. I don't know which one barked. In an instant, the wolf dogs rushed towards me from all directions. Extremely fast. And I didn't have time to react at all. The fastest wolf dog jumped and pounced on me, biting hard on my arm. The pain made me release the gun. The wolf dog on the left also pounced on me. Its bloody mouth was aimed at my neck. In a flash, a whistle pierced through the air. All the wolves immediately stopped moving. They lay down in fear. Shasha. Shasha. The dead branches and leaves were stepped on and made sounds. I suddenly turned around. Jason was dressed in black. Hidden in the darkness. He was a bit out of breath. I only saw a blurred outline. But I could clearly feel that his gaze was locked on me. A low sneer. Jason reached out. I put my hand on it. In the next second, I was pulled into his arms. The smell of tobacco and sweat was very unpleasant. The wound on my arm was so painful that I was sweating profusely but didn't dare to make any sound. Why are you running? Jason reached out and tucked my messy hair behind my ear. His tone was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. I didn't dare to make a sound. Suddenly, he grabbed my injured hand and touched the wound. The pain made me moan. Jason sneered. I thought you were mute. Have the ability to escape to the back mountain. Don't have the ability to answer me? I bit my lip. Jason was a little angry and raised his voice. Snow. Speak. Since we became intimate, Jason always teasingly called me baby. Calling me by my full name proved that he was really angry. I looked at him. My eyes were red but I still stubbornly didn't speak. We stared at each other for a long time. Jason was so ashamed and angry. Fine. Don't say it. Right? Then die here. He threw me away and turned to leave. I quickly grabbed his hand. Jason. As soon as I spoke, my voice was choked. Jason gritted his teeth, glared at me. Finally, resignedly, he picked me up. He was so angry that he couldn't vent. In a fit of anger, he shot and killed the wolf dog that bit me just now. I shrank in his arms and shed tears. Despite the intense pain in my arm, I didn't make a sound. I know Jason falls for this. After all, I am a beauty trap tailored for him. Back at the villa, Jason coldly helped me treat the wound on my arm. The wolf dog had a very sharp bite. The wound was torn and deep. Blood kept flowing. Jason unconsciously frowned. He rummaged through the medicine box. There's no anesthetic left. I can endure it. Can you really endure it? I nodded. Jason sneered. Without hesitation, he poured alcohol on it. The intense pain made my face turn pale. I cried out in pain. Subconsciously, I wanted to pull my hand back. In the next second, Jason stood up, sat behind me, hugged me tightly. His legs clamped my leg. His arm also pressed against my chest, not allowing me to move an inch. He picked up the needle and thread for suturing, quickly and neatly sutured the torn wound, applied medicine and bandaged it. In the meantime, I was in so much pain that I turned my head and bit his shoulder. Jason patted my head. It's done. I was in so much pain that I was convulsing. Only when I heard this did I breathe a sigh of relief and slumped in his arms. After a long time, I regained some strength. Jason's white shirt on his shoulder had a blood-red tooth mark. I guiltily leaned over and kissed it through the clothes. Sorry. Jason's body stiffened and his breathing quickened. The arm that was hugging me suddenly tightened. A dangerous voice sounded from above my head. Baby, do you know I fall for this? So it's on purpose? I looked up in confusion and looked at him. Jason's gaze was fixed on me. After a long time, he lowered his head and kissed my lips. Sometimes I really think your appearance seems calculated, he murmured. I leaned weakly in his arms and closed my eyes. It was indeed calculated. Jason, if I deceive you, will you kill me? Jason wiped the sweat beads on my forehead. His tone was indifferent. Why? After realizing that I can't escape your control. Are you willing to talk? I nodded. Yes. After knowing that you don't want me to die. I want to take a gamble. What do you mean? I barely propped myself up and looked steadily at Jason. I am not Snow. My real name is Snow. Say is my first love. 3 sentences. With each sentence, Jason's face darkened. I took a deep breath. I look like Snow. I took her place. I recognized a wealthy father. Came here and met you. But I didn't expect Say to be here. He came to see me during the day. I know you are negotiating. He asked me to find a way to make you give them 30%. Otherwise, he will tell you my identity. I have no way. I can only escape. I looked at Jason with tears in my eyes. I don't want to die. After saying that, I waited for Jason to speak. His expression was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. But when his eyes fell on me, I felt suffocated. After a while, Jason raised an eyebrow and asked me, "First love?" I was secretly happy but didn't show it. I just nodded. Jason asked about Zay first instead of my identity. That means his feelings for me are very deep. So deep that he can ignore or even not care about my identity. Then, I won't be exposed for the time being. Come on. Tell me in detail. Jason leaned back, lit a cigarette, with an unreadable expression. I lowered my eyes and gritted my teeth to open up the deepest and best corner hidden in my heart and present it to Jason in exchange for his pity. Zay was the person I had a crush on in high school. Later, we accidentally met again in college. I launched a passionate pursuit of him. After a year of pursuit, he finally agreed to me. We had 2 years of sweet time. But after graduation, he suddenly changed. He disappeared, lost contact, and found a mistress. I don't know why the high-spirited young man back then became so unbearable. When I finally went to find him, he was in a bar surrounded by all kinds of beautiful women. At that moment, I was completely disappointed in him. I wanted to leave, but someone stopped me. That night was like a nightmare that haunted me for countless years. They surrounded me, laughing and pulling my hair, pressing my shoulders, forcing me to drink, and slapping me. I was tortured until I was in a terrible state. But they were still not satisfied and wanted to gang rape me. In the end, It was because Say had been with me before that he asked them to let me go. But the man in charge refused. He gave Say a choice. Let me be slept by countless people or let him sleep with me in public. Choose one. When Say was on top of me, I smashed a wine bottle and stabbed his leg hard. In an instant, blood, screams, and commotion merged into a crazy and chaotic picture. I was slapped hard twice by Zay. I was dizzy. I always remember his ferocious look as if he wanted to kill me. When the police raided and swept for prostitution, they scattered and ran away and didn't care about me. Only then did I have a chance to escape. Later, I was taken to the police station for interrogation. Only then did I know that the man in charge at that time was a leader of the underworld in the area. And Zay was working under him. After confirming that I was not involved, the police sent me back. When I came out, I bumped into the people Lin Xiao sent to look for his daughter. They mistook me for Snow and took me back. After that, I pretended to have amnesia due to being persecuted and deceived everyone. I became Snow. After saying that, I exhaled and looked up at Jason. I actually don't like this place at all. I don't like those things. But now I am Snow. I can't go against it. This is the truth. Jason's cigarette was also smoked up. I showed uneasiness on my face. But in my heart, I have already determined that this hurdle has been passed. From the moment Jason rushed into the mountain forest to look for me regardless of dealing with the police. From the moment his first sentence was about Zay. Jason exhaled a smoke ring and suddenly kissed me. The remaining smoke all entered my mouth. I was choked and coughed continuously. This kiss was extremely intense. It was like he wanted to eat me. Since you know I can't bear to part with you, don't show this expression. I don't like it. An even more violent kiss fell. Suffocating and unbearable. My arm still hurt. But I didn't refuse Jason's advances. At this moment, he needed comfort. Jason kissed my forehead. Snow. I believe you once. Just once. Cherish it well. When the words fell, I completely fainted. When I woke up again, the room had been cleaned, and my arm had been changed with new medicine. Jason wasn't there. But Zeus stayed behind, saying it was to protect me. Undercover agents don't know each other. Otherwise, one move will affect the whole body. It's because I have been reborn several times that I recognize them. But I am different from Zhu. We are both people close to Jason. We both need each other's cover. So we recognize each other. He said that when I disappeared yesterday, Jason was extremely anxious. I took the opportunity to ask, how is the police side? Zhu hesitated for a moment and said, some industries were sacrificed. But there is no big problem. Why did the police suddenly attack this time? Zhu shook his head. It's not clear yet. But this time, the person leading the team is a person named Ming. He is biting the boss tightly. He won't stop until he finds something. Only then did the boss give up those industries. I nodded and didn't ask anymore. Ming. I have this person in my impression. During my second rebirth, Jason found out my identity. When I was running away, I met Ming. At that time, he was performing a mission alone. To save me. He almost died. In the end, I couldn't bear to drag him down. I jumped off a cliff alone. Is Ming reborn? After eating, I called Jason. He was at the factory. In the noisy background sound, I heard Zay's voice. Remembering his threat, I curved my lips. Zhu. Let's go. To the factory. When I arrived at the factory, I found that the group of wolves and dogs raised in the mountain forest had come out, and were surrounding a group of people. Zay was also inside. When he saw me, his face turned pale. I smiled and walked to Jason's side. He naturally put his arm around my waist and looked at my hand. Does it still hurt? Not too bad. I stood on tiptoe and kissed his chin. The intention to please was obvious. Jason chuckled. I also want to help you. But they don't want to let people go. The people behind him explained. The boss asked them to leave Zay and give 1% of the profit. But they want 30%. Shameless. I was slightly surprised. I looked back at the group of people surrounded by wolves and dogs. Their guns had been confiscated. Now they were angry and annoyed. I sneered, then just kill them all. When people ask, just say it was done by the police. Anyway, it's far away. Who knows? Jason burst out laughing. Scraped my nose. So smart. He conjured up a whistle like magic. The faces of those people changed greatly. Presumably they also knew that this whistle was to control the wolves and dogs. The person in charge immediately said, "Agree. We agree to you. Saul will be left behind. We only want 1% of the profit." Jason clicked his tongue, so easily frightened. But my attention was on that whistle. "What is this?" He looked down at me. "Want to try?" I nodded vigorously. Jason handed me the whistle and explained, "A short whistle means stop. A long whistle means attack. 2 whistles mean defend. Try it." I stroked the whistle and looked at Zay. My mind was full of the scene when he was on top of me. At that time, he said, "Don't blame me. Blame yourself for coming. Blame yourself for pestering me." Jason signaled. His people pulled the others out of the pile of wolves and dogs. Only Zay was left. I looked at him with a smile and gave him back the words intact. "Don't blame me. Blame yourself for coming. Blame yourself for pestering me." Zay plop knelt down in front of me. Tears and snot flowed. "I beg you. Please. Don't. I was wrong. Miss. I know I was wrong. Please forgive me." That night I also begged for mercy. But no one forgave me. With a long whistle, the wolves and dogs immediately pounced. Ah! Zay's leg was bitten and torn. He screamed in pain. Soon, he was submerged in the pack of wolves and dogs. But he was still alive and could still be heard. With a short whistle, the wolves and dogs stopped. Sa was covered in blood, lying on the ground. The wounds on his body were deep enough to see the bone. "Snow." He suddenly called my name. "I have something to tell you." "Really?" He looked up at me. His eyes were sincere. At this moment, I was a little dazed. It felt like Zay had never changed. "What words?" Zay forced an ugly smile. "Come closer. I can't stand up because my leg is useless." I looked at his bloody leg and squatted down. Zay moved closer. "Your mother." In fact, just then, a sudden change occurred. Zay flipped over and pressed on me. Reached out, and pinched my neck. "She died long ago. She deserved to die. You also deserve to die. Deserve to die." This change came so suddenly. I only felt a sharp pain in my neck. It was like a needle was inserted. In the next second, Zay was kicked away and hit the wall hard. I was pulled up. Jason comfortingly patted my back. "Learned your lesson?" I covered my neck. I felt a little uncomfortable. I glared at Zay angrily. Holding the whistle. With a long whistle, the wolves and dogs tore Zay, 2 pieces without hesitation. "Let me see." Jason took my hand away, and saw the needle lie on my neck. His eyes darkened. "Call a doctor. No one knows what is in this needle." Soon, doctors surrounded me. After a series of examinations, they looked solemn. "There is toxin in this needle. There is no advanced equipment here. We can't study it. We have to go to the top hospital for examination." Jason. I feel dizzy. And a little nauseous. In a rage, Jason killed those people who were with Zay. Immediately after, he quickly made arrangements and took me to the hospital for examination. When we arrived at the hospital, my attending doctor was a young and handsome man, named G. Seeing Jason's distressful look, he said gently, "My teacher is Professor Giao King. She is the top doctor in the industry. I am her most outstanding student. Okay. Please go out. Don't disturb my examination." Jason's face was gloomy. He didn't move. Obviously, he wanted to watch. G slowly said, "You and I can afford to wait. The patient can't." "Sir, please go out." I looked at Jason weakly. For the first time, I lost my temper. "Jason, do you want to watch me die?" Jason pursed his lips and reluctantly went out. He looked at me through the glass. G came to the bedside, with his back to Jason outside the window. He almost imperceptibly said a word, "Thing." The voice was very small, but I heard it. My heart sank. My hand unconsciously lifted. He immediately said in a normal voice, "Don't move. There is an IV in your hand." I said, "It hurts. It's uncomfortable." Then, I carefully told him, "In the bra." When they pushed me down, a cold object slipped into my bra along my collarbone. Immediately after, my neck was stabbed. Along the way, my mind was a little dizzy, coupled with Say's strange movements. I didn't tell Jason and Professor Kiao King that G mentioned. I know. She is exactly the teaching teacher arranged by the police for me. She taught me how to be more like Snow, and how to capture Jason's heart. G is obviously one of us. Then Zay. I didn't dare to think deeply. G used the pretext of examination to help me sit up. I deliberately sat unsteadily and leaned forward. While he supported me, his hand quickly hooked out that thing from my bra. The speed was extremely fast. I only saw a flash of silver light pass before my eyes. G, with his back to the window, blocked me with his body. Jason didn't notice his movement. He whispered sorry for the offense, and then helped me sit steadily. After a series of examinations, G helped me lie down and added a shot of medicine to my IV drip. Soon, I clearly felt that the feeling of dizziness and weakness disappeared a little. After G packed up the instruments, Jason also pushed the door and came in. He took the initiative to explain, "The examination results have to wait for the test. I just gave her medicine. It can relieve the symptoms." After G left, I took the initiative to cause trouble and glared at Jason. "You clearly know that Say has malicious intentions. Yet you didn't stop me." Jason was amused by anger. "Didn't I stop you? Are you being reasonable?" Not reasonable. My neck hurts so much. I feel dizzy and uncomfortable. It's all your fault. Perhaps seeing that I was uncomfortable, Jason softened his tone. Okay. It's my fault. Then as a punishment, that whistle will belong to me from now on." Jason laughed. "As you wish." Because of the IV drip, I was a little sleepy and fell asleep soon. After falling asleep, Jason's doting eyes became calm and gloomy. He had just heard it. "You only have one chance, baby." After taking the antidote, G said that I needed to be hospitalized for observation for 1 day. If there was no problem, I could go back. Jason had been guarding me all the time. There was no chance to be alone, so I couldn't ask G what he took from me. Before being discharged from the hospital, Jason suddenly said to me, "I said before that I would let you be the family head. Now there is just time. Let's go to the Lin family and take a look." Okay. Lin Xiao's death news must have reached the Lin family. As his only daughter, I should naturally inherit his assets. But the other uncles in the Lin family are not vegetarians. How could they tolerate a young girl like me on top of them? Now that Jason wants to support me, I naturally won't refuse. Holding the Lin family in my hands will give me more protection when I escape in the future. When we arrived at the Lin family, I thought Jason would cut the mess quickly and kill a chicken to scare the monkeys. After all, this is his usual style. But unexpectedly, he dragged his feet and stayed at the Lin family for several days. This is not right. This day, while Jason was changing the medicine on my arm, I asked him, "Don't go back." He didn't raise his head. His movements were gentle, not in a hurry. Consider it a vacation. I felt a vague uneasiness in my heart. These days, I quietly transferred some of the Lin family's assets to my name. As Snow, not Snow. I think Jason has other intentions. He wants to act. I will accompany him. until the real Snow comes back. When I saw that face exactly like mine, I was stunned. Didn't the police say that Snow was dead? Many years ago. Snow ran away from home and disappeared. Finally, her body was found in the sea. It was also at this time that I came out of the detention center again and was taken away by the police. After that, I was trained to be Snow in all aspects. But now, Snow is standing in front of me alive and glaring at me angrily. Fake. Do you think that pretending to be me can control the Lin family? Don't dream. Uncles. You may not know. My dad was killed by her. Snow waved her hand. Immediately, someone came forward with a tablet. Inside was clearly a surveillance video. The video was played. It was the scene in the villa when I shot Lin Xiao. Those uncles rushed towards me at once. I hid behind Jason and looked at his indifferent face. What are you doing? Jason clapped his hands. Immediately, someone came in and controlled those uncles. Snow was also stunned. Brother Chen, what are you doing? I looked at Snow and then at Jason. I think I know. Jason slowly said, Snow. Snow sincerely cooperates with me. What about you? Sure enough. Snow was found by him. He looked at me. There was an indifferent look in his eyes that saw through everything. What did she put on you? What did she take? Baby. Tell me. As long as you are willing to tell me. You are Snow. You are the person in power of the Lin family. We will be together forever. My face turned pale. I should have guessed it earlier. Jason is so cunning and suspicious. How could he let himself stay at the Lin family for so many days? So it was waiting for me here. I clenched my fist and stared at Jason idly. You don't trust me? Tell me and I will trust you. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, I looked at him disappointedly. Then fine. I'll tell you. I don't know what it is either. I didn't see it at all. In the hospital room, I was dizzy. When Ji examined me, he touched my chest. I raised my hand to stop him, but he seriously told me not to move. There was an IV in my hand. It made me feel that his touching my chest was an illusion. So I was embarrassed and replied that I had a headache. Then he helped me sit up. This time I really felt it. He hooked something out of my bra. It was very fast. I didn't see clearly. Jason's eyes were gloomy. Why didn't you tell me at that time? Because at that time in the hospital, considering your identity and your temper, I was afraid you would be impulsive. Every man can't tolerate other people touching his woman. Jason is no exception. Do you trust me? I took a step forward and looked directly into his eyes. He also looked at me. Then what happened later? Why didn't you say it? Sensei went to such great lengths for that thing and even risked his life. It must be extremely important. And I just received news from Huaxia district. Sei is an undercover agent. My pupils trembled. What did you say? Jason slowly raised his hand and touched my cheek. His tone was reluctant. Baby. He is an undercover agent. The thing he gave you. You gave it to his companion. If that thing was in my hands, I could control those people. Don't you understand? Jason's hand slowly slid down. Baby. I only trust you once. You only have one chance. My back stiffened and my hair stood on end. Jason's hand fell on my neck, but didn't tighten. He slowly lowered his head and whispered in my ear, You never knew. I have very good hearing. Snow. You have disappointed me too much. Suddenly, his 5 fingers tightened. My breathing became blocked. The air in my lungs was gradually squeezed out. I didn't struggle. I just looked at Jason with red eyes. Everyone present was Jason's people. I had nowhere to escape. I could only gamble. Red blood vessels climbed up Jason's eyes. His masseter muscle bulged. His hand began to tremble. The aura around him gradually became violent. At the moment when my consciousness was about to completely disappear, Jason let go. I won the bet. When I woke up again, I was locked in the basement, surrounded by darkness. My ankle was chained. I moved. The chain made a sudden sound in the quiet air. This reminded me of the third rebirth. It was very tragic. At that time, Jason was deeply in love with me. At the peak of his love, he found out that I was an undercover agent. He was soft-hearted and didn't kill me, but he wouldn't let me go either. It was also in this basement that he imprisoned me for 2 years. In those 2 years, I was in a living hell. Only numbness and mechanicalness remained. Finally, to protect the undercover comrades from escaping safely, I used my life to hold Jason back. When his gun was pointed at my head, his hand was shaking. He said, "Don't force me." The knife in my hand resolutely stabbed at his chest. While he held my wrist, he fired. He hugged me and asked, "Do you hate me so much? You are not a policeman. So, do you hate me so much?" Footsteps came from far and near. I came to my senses. Jason came to me with noble steps. He was holding Snow in his arms. I understood immediately. "Aren't you the eldest lady of the Lin family? How can you be willing to be my substitute?" Snow stamped her foot. "Shut up. I am not any substitute. If it weren't for you taking my place, how could Brother Chen like you?" Jason slowly said, "Tell me, what is your identity over there?" I smiled. "Jason, you must love me deeply." His face darkened. I continued, "Otherwise, why would you bring Snow to show off? You want to tell me that even without me, there will be Snow who looks exactly like me by your side. There will be countless Snows. You want me to be jealous." I smiled. Laughed out loud. Jason was exposed. Ashamed and angry, he strode over and pinched my neck. The veins on his neck bulged. "Snow, you think too highly of yourself. It hurts." I frowned. Subconsciously, Jason's hand loosened a little. Realizing it, he pushed me away. "Don't use any beauty tricks anymore. I won't believe you. Snow, you will stay here forever." Jason turned around, came and left quickly. Looking at his back, I slowly curved my lips. I am a beauty trap tailored for him. A group of people studied his words and deeds, personality and psychology. Through layer-by-layer analysis, they analyzed his weaknesses and soft spots. Then they created a woman most suitable for him. And I am that person. I still have a killer move. After being exposed by me, Jason didn't come for several days. He seemed very busy. Or maybe he was avoiding me. But Snow came frequently, showing off and being complacent. She said, "Thanks to you, Brother Chen is now gentle to me. Everyone calls me sister-in-law. Did they ever call you that before?" I gave all the money in my family to Brother Chen. He values me so much. He doesn't hide anything from me. Did you have such great authority before? I looked at her and didn't bother to speak. After Snow finished showing off, she left complacently. Almost every day was like this. On this day, when I was removing the bandage, she saw the wound on my arm and looked disgusted. "So ugly." I didn't say anything. "Hey, does it hurt?" I seemed to detect a trace of heartache in her tone. I couldn't help but look up at her. "I'm very curious. Weren't you dead?" The police had determined that she was dead, so they let me pose as her. How could she suddenly be alive again? Could it be that she was reborn? But that's not right either. If it was rebirth, it should have been 3 years ago to avoid death. Then how? Hearing this, Snow glared at me. "You're the one who's dead." After I fell into the sea, I drifted to an island and was rescued by fishermen. It's just that I was too sick and hadn't recovered. Now that I'm okay, I'm back. If I hadn't come back, I wouldn't have known that I had been impersonated. Seeing her like this, I continued to ask, "You were sick for 3 years?" I had been impersonating Snow for 3 years too. There must be some shady secrets in between. Snow's eyes flickered. "I got married." "Okay. I love my husband. Is it wrong to live with him in the fishing village?" "Then why are you back now?" Don't you love your husband anymore? Snow looked angry. Who loves that heartless man? In order to marry the village chief's daughter. He wanted to sell me. If I hadn't run fast, I would have been sold. All my savings were used to escape from that fishing village. And I couldn't contact my father. So I could only wash dishes in a restaurant for others. I'm so angry. If Brother Chen hadn't found me and brought me back to the Lin family, I would still be washing dishes now. I frowned and looked at Snow suspiciously. Washing dishes? After all, Snow was the daughter of the Lin family. Her temperament was self-evident. And she had learned a lot of things since childhood. It was unlikely for her to be reduced to washing dishes, even if she had wasted 3 years in the fishing village. Suddenly, I had an inspiration. Only an undercover agent would do such a common and unsuspicious job. Could it be? I took a look at Snow. Snow glared at me. Why are you looking at me? Don't expect me to help you ask Brother Chen for forgiveness. I won't ruin my future. She snorted coldly and left. I looked at Snow's back and thought about testing her. Soon, the opportunity came. Jason sent someone to take me out, and directly to the back mountain of the secret prison. He didn't show up. Snow was there. She looked confused. Hey, why did you call me here? The next second, she was knocked unconscious by Zhu with a knife hand strike. Similarly, I was also knocked unconscious by the person behind me. When I woke up again, both of us were deep in the mountain forest. I felt it. Sure enough, the whistle was taken away. Obviously, Jason was also suspicious. The test was so simple and crude. When Snow woke up and saw this place, she was panicked. Where is this? What's that? Is it a wolf? Don't come over. So many wolves. What should I do? Snow ran behind me to hide. In front, the wolf dogs came over, then crouched down, ready to attack. 2 legs can't outrun 4 legs. Snow, there are wolf dogs behind you. Sure enough. Snow screamed and jumped in front of me. I took the opportunity to push her hard. Sorry. The group of wolf dogs in front immediately pounced on Snow and bit her leg. Her screams echoed through the mountain forest. Snow. You bitch. I won't let you go. It hurts so much. Get away. She kicked and hit the wolf dog randomly. Then she begged for mercy again. Woo woo. Snow. Save me. Please save me. My leg is going to break. It was an obvious test. The wolf dog just bit her leg, growled lowly, and looked scary. But in fact, it neither tore nor dragged. Jason still needed Snow now, so he wouldn't let her die. Of course, I couldn't save her either. Jason must be watching from the dark. I said slowly, I can't save you. Who told you to show off to me every day? Is it my fault that Jason is nice to me? Aren't you wrong for impersonating me? I nodded seriously. Yes, we're both wrong. So I don't want to save you even more. Unless you call me a good sister. Snow looked at me in surprise and without hesitation shouted, Good sister. Save me. The corner of my mouth hooked up, and the stone I had been holding for a long time was thrown out and hit the wolf dog's nose accurately. The wolf dog, in pain, immediately let go of Snow. This was what Jason taught me in my previous life. I went over to pull Snow up and deliberately left my back to the wolf dog. 1, 2, 3. At the same time, a short whistle sounded. I turned around, and the wolf dog crouched down to steps behind me. Jason slowly walked out of the forest. Snow immediately complained, Brother Chen. She pushed me. She pushed me on purpose. She wanted me to die. Let the wolf dogs bite her to death quickly. Jason gave Snow a sideways glance, and she immediately shut up. Then, he looked at me. I don't remember teaching you this. I took a step forward and looked directly into his eyes. Because I was reborn. This was also for Snow to hear. The next second, Jason dragged me away, completely ignoring Snow. Back at the villa, he dragged me into the room and pinned me against the wall. The usually calm and self-possessed person lost his composure. Tell me, when were you reborn? Have you been lying to me all this time? I stroked his eyebrows. Jason, I didn't lie to you. It's just that you don't believe me. Since you started testing me, there has been no trust between us. So no matter what I say, you will think I'm lying to you, and will suspect me. I put my hand down and stopped talking. But he held my shoulders like a madman. I told you to talk. Talk. I refused to speak. He was extremely angry and lowered his head to bite my lips. Immediately, I tasted blood. I was like a wooden statue, motionless. Finally, Jason gave up. His tall body loomed over me. His head rested on my shoulder, and his voice trembled. Baby, tell me. Tell me. I waited for 5 minutes before slowly exhaling and reaching out to hug his waist. Jason, it's true, he asked in a trembling voice. That sentence? Yes. The sentence that I love you is true. I hugged him tightly. You should know, right? During those days in the Lin family, you were unprepared for so many days. I clearly had so many opportunities. The things they gave me, I had to give it to them. It was from within the territory, not yours. You know that. You should know. But how could you? My eyes were full of tears as I pushed him. Jason looked up, his eyes full of shock and horror. I asked him, don't you want to ask me how I was reborn? He was led by me. How were you reborn? I tiptoed to peck his lips, and a teardrop fell down and landed on our touching lips. I said with a smile, we once said that if one day you were caught, I would accompany you. Jason's eyes shook. You died for love. Yes. And then I was reborn in bed. Me too. Jason lowered his head and kissed me gently, with the surprise of regaining what was lost. This time, Jason was extremely gentle. He would stop when I said so, and only move when I nodded. Look, love is really mysterious. Jason and I made up. Snow was the victim. She accused Jason in front of me, when you were away. He made me wear your clothes, imitate your tone and behavior. And he even slept with me. Maybe I'm even pregnant with his child. Aren't you angry? At this time, Jason came back. I don't know which sentence stimulated him, but he directly ordered someone to send Snow back to the Lin family. Then he came over to hug me and kissed my neck. I didn't sleep with her. Baby, let's have a child. I was stunned. So sudden? He looked at me gloomily. It's not sudden. In our previous life, we were together for 4 or 5 years. But we didn't have a child. I pursed my lips. Do you like children very much? Jason nodded. Okay. Let's have one. Although we made up, Jason was always on guard against me, and didn't let me touch the core secrets. Moreover, he had made a series of changes to all the clues about our previous life. I could sense that this was going to be a long-term battle. During this time, Jason rooted out a lot of undercover agents. Some I remembered. Some I didn't. I had been keeping an eye on Zhu. Fortunately, he was still there. Since Jason wanted a child, I went to ask for a lot of folk remedies. I was almost becoming a medicine pot myself. He felt sorry for me and once said that he didn't want it anymore. But I insisted. This is your wish. Jason hugged me guiltily. At first, I thought you didn't want to. But I didn't expect it was because of your poor health. I'm sorry. Baby, why is your health so poor? I hugged him cockathiously and pretended to be relaxed. Didn't I tell you before? That time with Say. Both my body and mind were traumatized. Yes. He stroked my hair gently. I continued. Later. In order to treat me, my father lost most of his family property. He was old and fell ill from overwork. He suddenly fell ill, and my family went completely bankrupt. Then I went to work in a bar. It was a quick way to make money. A manager asked me to deliver drinks. But someone took a liking to me and wanted me to drink with them. At that time, I thought it was better to avoid trouble. So I drank several bottles. But the man in charge didn't like me and insisted that I accompany him. In the chaos, I stabbed someone and was arrested again. As I was talking, I observed Jason's expression. Later, I was sentenced for negligent injury. My family was torn apart because of me. My father died of illness. And my mother disappeared. It was also in prison that my body was severely damaged. And it was very difficult for me to get pregnant. Jason's face stiffened as if he had remembered something. I didn't mind stimulating him a little more. I always remember that the man who forced me to drink with him was their leader. They called him Brother Fu. Jason's body trembled. Do you know him? He looked down at me. And the panic in his eyes was too late to hide. I don't know. I pretended to be disappointed. Alas. What a pity. Jason tightened his arm around me, which made me a little painful. I didn't make a sound. When Jason's father sent him out to gain experience, he didn't use his real name. He was afraid of being thought to be relying on his father's influence. So he used the alias Fushun. Guilty? Self-reproach? The more guilty and self-reproachful he is, the more he will want to make it up to me. Actually, that was also my first rebirth. I didn't survive in prison at all and died directly in the empty cell. It was also that rebirth that made me determined to be with Jason. I almost wanted to kill him. I took a lot of medicine. Finally, with the expectation of both Jason and me, I got pregnant. I specially prepared a surprise. When Jason came back after finishing his work and saw the pregnancy test stick, he was completely stunned. It took him a long time to recover. He wanted to hug me, but didn't dare to. Finally, he carefully touched my belly. My child. This is my child. Yes. Our child. Jason didn't receive much love when he was a child. So he would look forward to having his own child, and would make up for what he lacked in his childhood to the child. Since I got pregnant, Jason obeyed my every command, and no longer restricted my movements. In his opinion, I was willing to have a child for him, and was willing to take so many bitter medicines for him. He thought I loved him deeply. When we first went for the prenatal checkup, Jason almost clung to me. He couldn't bear to be separated from me for a moment. It was also after knowing that I was pregnant that Snow came back shamelessly, trying to seduce Jason while I was pregnant. She's pregnant and you can't touch her. I look the same as her. What's wrong with you touching me? All she got in return was a "get out" from Jason. Jason was afraid that I would be angry. So he no longer allowed Snow to enter the villa for the monthly prenatal checkup. No matter how busy he was, he would always find time to accompany me. And every time we went to the hospital, Snow would be there, harassing Jason. When he couldn't bear it any longer, I would feel unwell and ask him to accompany me to see the doctor. Later, Snow didn't show up much, and he didn't care about her anymore. My health was not very good. The doctor said that I needed to keep the fetus. So Jason moved all his business to the villa to handle. It was also in this way that I discovered a secret. Not only the clues and evidence we found in our previous lives, but also the secrets of Jason's overseas cooperation. I suddenly remembered his unwilling look in his previous life. Maybe at that time, he thought that people overseas would come to save him. During one prenatal checkup after another, I passed on all this information, until this fetus could no longer be saved. And I was going to use this child to completely trap Jason. The fetus was already 6 months old. I counted the days carefully. Finally, this evening, I had a severe pain in my stomach. Jason, who was sleeping soundly, immediately woke up and quickly sent me to the hospital. I knew that tonight would be a sleepless night. After such a long time, it was time for an ending. After arriving at the hospital, the doctor quickly examined me and said that I had to have an induced labor. Otherwise both the mother and the child would die. Jason sent me into the operating room. His eyes read, "It will be okay. Don't be afraid. I'll wait for you outside." I held his hand. "I'm scared." "Don't go." "I won't go. I won't go." I was pushed into the operating room. A door separated me from Jason. Inside the door, I was given anesthesia and the induced labor operation was carried out. Outside the door, Officer Zhang led people to surround the hospital tightly. I was in a coma, and didn't know whether it was dangerous or not at all. It was just that when I was pushed out after the operation, I was woken up by the repeated calls of baby. Barely opening my eyes, I saw Jason with his hands cuffed, being pressed to the ground. My hanging heart finally settled down. Great. This time, Jason asked me the same question. "Baby, did you ever love me?" I looked at him coldly. "Never. I hope this time there will be no more rebirths." On the day I was discharged from the hospital, Officer Zhang said that Jason insisted on seeing me no matter what. I thought about it and agreed. In the police station, Jason and I were separated by a glass. He looked much haggard. There was full of love in his eyes when he looked at me. "Baby, did you ever love me?" I laughed softly. "Love your second uncle." He lowered his head gloomily. I know everything. "Baby, you have been reborn 4 times just to bring me to justice. You've worked hard." I was stunned. He knew? Jason smiled bitterly. "During your pregnancy, I remembered a lot of things. In the first life, I asked you to accompany clients for drinks because I couldn't stand your appearance of being noble while in the mire. I wanted to ruin you. Later, I heard that you died. I thought it was a bit of a pity. How could you just die? In the second life, your beauty trap was discovered by me. I didn't originally want to kill you. I just wanted to imprison you. But you were too stubborn. You would rather jump off the cliff than come back to me. After that, you were like a shadow living in my heart for a long time. In the third life, you were exposed. I imprisoned you and made you belong to me only. But you actually wanted to die with me for those people. I was so angry. But after killing you, I regretted it so much. So much. In the fourth life, you succeeded. I was arrested. I asked you if you loved me. And you said yes. Do you know? At that moment, I thought it was worth dying. But when I opened my eyes again, I was reborn. Baby, do you know? During this time, every time I remembered a past life, my love for you grew deeper, until it penetrated my bones and became an addiction. I know you were lying to me. But I was willing. Jason looked at me sincerely, hoping to get a response from me. I propped my cheek and listened. "Did you call me here just to tell me these things?" He didn't speak, just looked at me. I sneered. "Willing? You attribute the efforts of our countless undercover comrades to being willing? Aren't you ashamed? Have you no shame? But it's not strange that you fell in love with me. After all, a group of high IQ professors studied you for a long time specifically for you and tailored such a beauty trap for you. No one could resist it. The person you fell in love with was illusory. The real me was never like this." Hearing this, Jason's eyes trembled and shattered. He couldn't speak for a long time. I stood up, snorted coldly, clapped my hands and left. "This time, don't be reborn again. Otherwise, Jason will kill me first." Soon, Jason was convicted and sentenced to death. I went to see it. He was blindfolded. A bullet ended his sinful life. He was dead. Dead for sure. But my hanging heart still hadn't been completely put down. I was afraid that, like last time, when I opened my eyes, I would be reborn again. After going out, I saw several familiar people. Ming, Sue and Snow. I walked up to Ming first. "Ming, may I ask you a question?" He replied directly, "I'm not reborn." I was shocked. Back then. Oh, back then. After receiving the news, We were afraid that a sudden transfer would cause you to be discovered and in danger. So we used the clues that we had been holding for a long time to confront Jason. I was a bit disappointed. I see. Sue looked at me and hesitated to speak. Well, you said Jason was reborn. Then why wasn't I killed first? You weren't exposed in your previous life. Zhao clapped his hands and looked at Ming triumphantly. I told you. I'm the best undercover. Okay. Okay. You're great. Snow looked at them and covered her mouth, giggling. Only then did I have the chance to ask her, aren't you the eldest daughter of the Lin family? Why did you become an undercover too? Snow smiled. I'm not an undercover. I was also very scared. If they hadn't forced me, I wouldn't have gone. My dream is to be an actress. Then were all the things you said before true? Snow looked as if it was a matter of course. Yes. I gave her a thumbs up. Your acting skills are really great. You will be very popular if you enter the entertainment industry. Snow blushed a little. It's okay. You also attracted most of the attention. You are the great hero. I smiled and asked them, do you know Zay? He was also an undercover. All of them shook their heads. Go and ask Officer Zhang. Maybe he knows. Okay. When I found Officer Zhang, he was coming out with a box in his arms. Seeing me, he hesitated to speak. I spoke first. Officer Zhang. Do you know Zay? He sighed. This is Zay's suicide note. It's for you. I was stunned. So, he was really an undercover? Then what was the person I hated for so many years? I always thought that he had ruined my life. Without him, none of the following things would have happened. My father and mother would have been alive. I wouldn't have been involved with Jason. But now, I was told that he had his own difficulties. Officer Zhang patted my shoulder. Zay was an undercover we arranged in the West District. There was a mole among our people, which led to the sacrifice of all undercover comrades. He couldn't and didn't dare to pass on the collected information, because he didn't know whether the information would reach us or the mole. Fortunately, he met you. My eyes were a bit sore, and I stiffly changed the topic. Are there any clues about my mother? Officer Zhang nodded. Recently, we found out that your mother is still alive. But she has amnesia. She remarried in the north. Do you want to go and see her? She was still alive. Still alive. The big stone in my heart finally fell. It was good that she was alive. Before I knew it, my face was full of tears. I won't disturb her. If I hadn't been addicted to drugs, how could my father have died and my mother disappeared? Now, I won't disturb her. Say's mother. Alas, she passed away. I remembered the words of the young policeman in my previous life and asked Officer Zhang. There were so many chances of rebirth. Why wasn't one given to a hero? Why was it given to a scumbag like Jason? So many heroes. Nameless. Why wasn't one chance of rebirth given to them? Officer Zhang patted my shoulder heavily and said firmly, you are the hero. Until later, I went to the north. Raised a very silly dog. I felt the strongest wind, drank the strongest liquor, and saw the most beautiful glaciers and lakes. This time, no one was reborn. This time, it was a complete end. End of the main text. Say's side story. My parents were both policemen. My father died in a arrest operation, and my mother was also retaliated against and became permanently disabled. She moved around many places before finally settling down. I thought my mother wouldn't agree to me becoming a policeman. I thought she wanted me to accompany her and spend her old age peacefully. But she said, you should become a policeman. She said that I should finish what my father hadn't completed. She said that if everyone was afraid of retaliation and thought like that, when would those criminals be brought to justice? Only when all the criminals were dead would there be permanent peace. But because of my identity, I couldn't openly attend the public security university. No one knew whether there were still people watching my family. My mother asked for help through connections and let her former teacher teach me. When her teacher came, he asked her if she was sure, and she said she had been sure for a long time. Sacrifice the small family for the big family, she said very lightly. In this way, on the surface, I was a student at an ordinary university. But secretly, I was an undercover trained by my mother and her teacher with all their efforts. I originally thought that I would dedicate my whole life to this career. But then, I met Snow, that mischievous and energetic girl. I noticed her in high school, because she often peeked at me. Several times. I even caught her secretly writing my name. At that time, she muttered, "We can't affect everyone's college entrance examination. After the college entrance examination, I will confess." I heard it, and my ears quietly turned red. But I remembered what my mom said. So when the college entrance examination ended, I left in a hurry without stopping. It wasn't until we accidentally met again in college. Snow launched a fierce pursuit of me. In the end, I couldn't resist and agreed to her. That day, she was extremely happy. And I was also infected and smiled with curved eyes. After my mom found out, she didn't say anything. She just sighed. I knew I should be measured. But for me, Snow was like poison. I became more and more addicted and couldn't quit. In the middle of the night, I would always hate myself for being soft-hearted at the beginning. But I couldn't help thinking. Just indulge for a while. Just for a while. Until after graduation. My mom told me that it was time for me to act. Only then did I realize that I had indulged too much. My mom said, "Talk to Xiaozu properly. She is not an unreasonable person." I shook my head. No. It was precisely because I knew she wasn't that I didn't dare. She was too brave. The way my mom and I moved around many places was still vivid in my memory. I didn't dare. Didn't want to. And was even more unwilling. While being an undercover agent, I started to give her the cold shoulder, disappear, and lose contact. After arguing and making a fuss, I clearly felt that she was starting to be disappointed in me. I was both sad and relieved. During this time, I successfully infiltrated under a big brother, and became someone he favored. There was an opportunity for me to follow him into the core. At that time, we had just completed the task assigned by the boss, and even exceeded it. The boss was very happy and wanted to praise the big brother in person. The big brother said he would take me to see the world. We were celebrating in a bar, but I didn't expect that Xiaozu would come looking for me. At that time, I was surrounded by beauties on both sides. She saw it, and her face visibly turned pale. But she was stubborn. She wanted me to personally say that I didn't love her anymore and hated her. The way others looked at her was already starting to be wrong. I said harsh words to her and wanted to quickly drive her away. But it was still too late. When she wanted to leave, she was stopped. I knew she probably couldn't leave. I quietly contacted the police. At the same time, I was also in danger of being exposed. Xiaozu was pressed on the table and forced to drink. But they were still not satisfied. In her eyes looking at me, there was only hate. The others were already having fun, and started to touch her all over and wanted to rape her. I asked the big brother to let her go considering that she had been with me before. But the big brother was on a high. He didn't allow it. He waved his hand and gave me a choice. One was for them to gang rape Xiaozu. One was to let me sleep with her in public out of consideration for me. I had no choice. When I dragged her and pressed her on the sofa, she gritted her teeth and said she hated me. This word hate was like a bone-scraping knife. Some people were making a commotion. Some people were taking videos. I pretended to be relaxed. She took the opportunity and grabbed a wine bottle. She smashed the wine bottle. Holding the bottle mouth, she without hesitation stabbed into my left leg and even pressed and rotated it hard. But I didn't seem to feel pain. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the big brother take out a knife. I immediately slapped her twice and blocked her at the same time. Just then, the police came. Someone pulled me and ran. I quickly looked back. She was trembling and shrinking on the sofa, hugging herself tightly. She didn't cry. She was looking at me. After running around the corner, I couldn't see anything anymore. We ran fast and weren't caught. But the big brother also became suspicious. He deliberately dragged me and didn't let me go to the hospital. As a result, my left leg became disabled and a bit lame. In the end, I didn't go to see the boss with him either. Once the seed of suspicion was planted, there would be endless testing. I had to start another plan. At this time, I connected with a comrade who had been undercover for 2 years. With his help, I rebelled. I solved the big brother with one shot and took his position. And my lame leg also became the reason why others said I secretly hated him. Later, I saw the boss. He saw my lame leg and didn't want to reuse me. That's why I survived by chance later. The boss had already detected that there were undercover agents inside. He made a long-term plan. When one undercover agent after another was removed, I realized that they had also planted undercover agents in the police. And their positions were not low. Before the last undercover comrade died, I quietly went to see him. He gave me a disc and told me that I had to send it out even if I died. After that, the boss was always looking for the disc and interrogated everyone who had contact with the undercover comrade, including me. I endured it and hid the disc well. But I couldn't send it out. At this time, the boss wanted to talk about cooperation with the people in the Southern District and sent someone there. I fought for a place to accompany. This aroused the boss's suspicion. After all, not many people are willing to go there and risk their lives. But I couldn't care less. I only had this one chance. It was also after arriving in the Southern District that I saw Zhao Xiaozu. At this time, she was glamorous and Caucasus with our negotiation target. At a glance, I recognized her. At the same time, I saw that Jason was deeply in love with her. The look of loving someone can't deceive people. I didn't know why she was here, but I knew she would never be with these people. I inquired and found out that she was now the daughter of a wealthy man. Her name was Snow and Jason liked her very much. Her identity was fake. Jason had already sent people to investigate her, but she didn't know yet. So I went to find her. As soon as we met, she wanted to kill me. I deliberately guided her. She was very smart. She knew how to use the tactic of playing the victim to make Jason feel pity. When he felt pity, she would tell him her identity completely. At the same time, Jason would definitely not let me go. I had already thought of how to pass on the message. When surrounded and bitten by wolves and dogs, I deliberately lured her over. I knew that her mother was her weakness. When I flipped over and pressed on her, I slipped the disc into her bra and at the same time pricked her with a needle. The needle carried toxin. So Jason had to take her to the hospital. And there was the contact point arranged by my mom. This toxin was the signal. As long as she went in, the disc would be taken by my mom and them. But would she be discovered by Jason? Would she die because of this? I didn't dare to think. I thought, she was very smart. She should think of a way to get out. I thought, sorry. I thought I would cause her to die. The wolves and dogs were biting my left leg. It really hurt. This time, it really hurt. I want to go back to before graduation. Back to that rental house. I want to hug her well and say sorry to her. If I can be reborn, I must let her be safe. 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 Let her be